47th year on the staff of the California Boys State Program. I also had the pleasure and honor of serving for 14 years on the staff of Boys Nation. I'm here this morning to share with you the whole notion of the electoral process. There will be a little bit of time for all of us, I hope, to learn from one another. The first thing I do is I'm going to ask you some questions. There are 3 legal issues with anybody who wants to run for an office or be elected to an office. Can you tell me what they are? 3 legal issues. Yellow, yes, back there in the orange.
Age.
Age. That's another one. Citizenship. And the last one, residency. Those are the 3 things that you have to qualify for. Those are written in law for every office in the state of Illinois or in the United States. The rest of the process is a little bit different. Now, we all know that, we all assume that we know what the age requirements are. Excuse me, well, not necessarily. Believe it or not, at the age of 18, you can run for city council and you can run for a school board. I believe you can also run in most counties for county board of supervisors. Excuse me, the whole thing of citizenship, of course, that's a little bit muddier. You have to be a citizen to run for an office. Except, of course, we know for the presidency of the United States. Then you have to be a natural-born citizen. Can somebody tell me what that means? Be careful, it means more than you may think.
Born in the territorial,
Born in the territories of the United States. That means the 48 contiguous states, plus Alaska and Hawaii, plus some of the other American territories. What else does it mean?
Like Army bases overseas?
Correct. Army bases overseas, or if your parents are involved in the state, working for the State Department. And the other one, of course, is if your parents are both U.S. citizens. That one gets a little muddier. There have been some court cases in charging and challenging that. So we'll kind of leave that one out there on the periphery. Other than that, you have to be a resident of the area in which you're going to be elected. There is in the state of Illinois, however, 2 exceptions to these rules. Or I should say 2 more rules. One of them is if you want to run for state's attorney or attorney general in the state of Illinois, you must be a licensed practicing attorney in the state of Illinois. The other is if you want to run for what is known as the regional superintendent of education. There you have to have certain educational requirements, including, I believe, a master's degree. But other than that, it's just simply those 3 things: age, citizenship, residency. The Illinois Office of Elections publishes a candidate's guide. If you're going to run for an office, that's where you need to start. Then it's just simply reading and following directions. But since we're all males, you all know that we oftentimes have the propensity of going, when all else fails, then follow the directions. But I would encourage you to do that, to find out what is required. In some cases, there will be a need for information, certain types of information, including financial information. In some cases, you may need a certain number of signatures on a petition, but all of that is spelled out for you. And so that's not that difficult. The difficult part of the electoral process is after somebody becomes a candidate. How many of you in here, or who of you in here, will become student council presidents next year in your high schools? You 2 guys back there, come here. You come here. Yeah, whoever's hand was up over here, come here. I need the 4 of you. Never mind. Okay, yeah, that's fine. You come on. Since nobody over there is jumping at the chance, pull a chair and put them right here. Gentlemen, let's play a little game. You are the senior class of an exclusive all-boys high your candidates for class president. Starting with Nike here on the end and working our way across, why should they vote for you?
I don't really know. I wanted to run for the position, so I just stuck my neck out there and tried it.
Next.
You should vote for me. Because while I am just as qualified as everybody else, I'm willing to put myself out here and try harder and present myself.
Next.
Well, as a position like president, I am is someone who will be a servant to the body, a public servant, in this case a servant to the Senate body, and I feel that I am the best person to be a servant to the body.
Past 3 years, I've been your assistant president on your class board. Therefore, I'm familiar with our class, I'm familiar with our values and our distinct attributes that we hold true to ourselves, and therefore I feel like I can represent you the best because I'm familiar with how you approach different topics, and I am working for you in this position.
One thing I failed to tell you, gentlemen, is that I spent 10 years in a high school classroom as a teacher. I expect not to be respected. However, I hope that you will respect each other. And I'm an old man, so I can only hear one of you at a time. So when I ask a question, if you would please raise your hand and wait for me to call on you. I would really appreciate that. Now, gentlemen, these 4 young men have told you why they want you to elect them. Do you have enough information to make an adequate choice? Yes, no, maybe, sometimes, not always. Come on, guys, you're not all asleep, are you? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what else do you need to know? Yes, sir, right here. You had your hand up.
Like their names, where they're from, what they plan on doing with the council, stuff like that.
Yeah, the first thing that you forgot to do is you didn't even tell them who the heck you are. How can they vote for you if they're not sure what your name is? Yes, sir.
Intentions, like what they intend to do.
What do they intend to do? Okay, what else? What else do you need to know? Yes, sir.
Qualifications,
What do you mean by qualifications?
like what do they have done that makes them a candidate for the student board?
Okay, what else? Yes, sir.
Life's background, sometimes.
Expand on that if you would, please.
Like, for example, if they worked on a farm for years and then, like, their district is a farmer's county, then that can help gain votes.
Yes, sir.
The activities that they're involved in,
Why is that important?
because I don't want let's say one of them has never even set foot in the band room. How do I know that they're going to represent the band as equally as they represent the football team?
Good question. Yes, sir.
What separates them from the other candidates?
Again, I'm going to ask you to expand on that a little, please.
If I'm making that decision, they all like mention how they're like equally adequate. So why does it matter which one I vote for? I want something that is unique about one of them.
Would it make a difference if this young man whose hands I have on his shoulders, in the 7th grade with a neighbor, went and snuck into the back of a local convenience store and stole a bottle of booze and then went out and got plastered? Yes, sir.
You should probably know if any of the candidates have some sort of medical condition that might make them slightly ineffective at their jobs.
Hey, while Diocese of Belleville, which is the 28th southernmost counties in the state of Illinois. I told you I taught high school for 10 years. I was the director of the Newman Center at SIU Carbondale for 3 years. And for the last 20 years, I have been the pastor of St. Andrew Catholic Church in Murfreesboro, Illinois, which is just 10 miles from Southern Illinois University. So that's what I do in the real world. I am currently responsible for a 170 student grade school. So I'm still not out of education, it's just that I'm not involved in it up to my ears on a day-to-day basis. That's why I hire a principal. That's her responsibility. So, having said that, it's time to answer a question for Father, and you don't lie to Father, right? How many of you in your last school election did not vote? Please stand. Okay, gentlemen, no, stay standing, guys. Why not? Didn't have school elections. What do you mean by that? You don't have school election? How is your student council? You have a student council. How are they put in place?
Well, I didn't vote because my homeroom teacher didn't have a social.
Okay, thank you. Yes. It's online. You didn't know your password. I know. I got that one in. Thank you. Yes. Oh, okay. I'm going to ask you the question I asked somebody yesterday who gave me an answer similar to that. Is that an editorial comment or is that first-hand knowledge? Okay. You get to stay standing. Yes. You get to stay standing. Yes.
School's too small to have that. Our school's too small to have that.
School doesn't. Do you guys go to the same school?
Oh, no, I mean, like,
Thank you. You may be seated. Yes.
Couldn't find the election.
Couldn't find the election thing. How bad did you look? Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you. I'm sorry.
The polls closed before I got to school. They were like really early in the morning.
And you slept in that morning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Didn't know anyone on the ballot.
Didn't know anyone on the ballot. You get to stay standing. Yes, sir. You didn't care. You get to stay standing. Yes, sir. Thank you. I got one of you already. You can sit down. Ooh, okay, you get to stay standing. Yes. I'm sorry. Okay, and of course it was so important to everybody in the class that they let the homeroom teacher get by with that. Thank you. Yes. Okay, thank you.
This is out by email. My time totally got it. It's already done.
Thank you.
We don't vote, they have interviews and
I'm sorry, you don't vote, you what?
we don't vote, they have interviews for student council.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Yes. All right, thank you. Thank you.
They put it out in the cafeteria on all the tables, and people were making paper airplanes out of them, so I thought they did not actually take one of them. It was all over the room.
How big is your school?
300 people, I think.
I'm sorry?
300 people.
Oh, pretty small. Okay, thank you.
Right.
Yeah, right. Okay, thank you.
Candidates for idiots.
Candidates for idiots. I'm gonna ask you what I asked the young man down there. Is that an editorial comment or is that personal knowledge?
Personal knowledge.
Personal knowledge. Then I'm gonna ask you another question, then why didn't you run? Thank you. At least I'm glad to see that none of you are standing, because yesterday one of the young men that I had up there was, and it was like, your answer again, young man, was? You didn't care. Why not? And guess what question you're gonna get next? Why not?
because it wasn't important.
Why? Why do you think that? Do you care about anything? If we weren't being taped, I'd say something, but I won't go there. There's nothing in your high school that you are excited about, that you are. Yes, about?
Kinda sucks, so
Again, I'm gonna ask personal knowledge or editorial comment?
personal knowledge,
Personal knowledge, okay. Then why don't you run and change it?
because I don't wanna run.
Because you don't care. I got a feeling we're in a vicious circle there. Thank you, young man. Your reason again was?
I didn't know I was on the ballot.
Why not?
Because none of my friends were in city council.
Because none of you, so the only reason you would have voted is if one of them had been one of your friends.
It wasn't that, it was just my friends. They didn't give out interviews or anything, so just names on a sheet.
Who has a responsibility to find out who those people are?
Well, why should I have to go campaign for them?
I didn't say you had to go campaign for them.
It's their job to campaign to me.
That is true. But don't you have an obligation to find out who the people are on the ballot?
Why, if they want my vote, they should campaign to me, right?
We'll get back, get around to that eventually. Thank you. You may be seated. The young gentleman behind you, what was your reason again?
It was an interview process.
It was an interview process. So in other words, you really don't have any say in who is on your student council. In other words, I'm guessing the faculty interviews potential candidate. Well, how do you become a potential candidate for an interview?
You just asked them, you send out a vote.
So in other words, all you have to do is say, yo, teach, I want to be on the student council. And then you get an interview. And if the teacher likes you, you're on. If the teacher doesn't like you, you're history. Okay, thank you. Your reason again, young man? You can honestly care less. You're like the young man over here. You have something in common. Why don't you care? Your school is atrocious. I know what that word means, but explain to me what you mean by that word, please.
It's absolute shit.
You are aware that we are being live streamed here. You obviously have a reason for saying that, other than just, I don't like you, so I think you're Adam Henry. I should tell you that I have a public safety background as well, and Adam Henry is the code phrase for two other words that start with an A and an H. And I don't think I have to explain to you what those words are. What is it about your school that you don't care about?
The people there, neighbors on it, and staff overall.
How many students in your school?
1,000.
1,000. Okay, thank you. Your reason again was?
Student citizen campaign, it's just names on a sheet. I mean, the school's really small, anyway, so.
How many?
About.
Okay. So in other words, a little bit smaller than the size of everybody here this week. Okay. Thank you. What happened to you? How many of you really think that your student councils do nothing? Oh, now that's not good either.
He's here to make a change, though. He's here to make a change.
Okay. Why are you on the council then, young man?
I mean, we do some good things, but all around in the school, we don't do anything.
Can you flesh that out for me, please?
Like, we don't really do anything for any of the classes, but we do put on what we call Hope Week, and it raises money for St. Jude.
Okay.
So that's what we do.
You had your hand up.
Well, so we don't really do anything for the school. Student council basically does like work with the surrounding community, like the city of. So it doesn't really work with the high school. It's mostly just
So you do nothing with the school per se?
yeah.
Okay. Somebody had a hand up out here. Yes, sir.
Our city council literally just doesn't,
Just prom and that's it. That's it. Yes, sir.
I don't know what to do, but like, I really don't see anything that they have done.
Okay. Yes, sir.
They're more involved in like organizational stuff, and they're not like actually trying to like get to know the students.
Okay. Did I see a hand out of the corner of my eye over here? then I'm gonna ask what somebody else, has already said, and I think I may have said already this morning here, and that is, why don't you run and change it? Bingo! There's that word again. How many of you paid attention to the signs that are on the walls as you enter into the food line? You know, the one with the picture of George Washington, the one with the picture of John Adams. And then there's a quote from Abraham Lincoln. Can anybody tell me what that quote from Abraham Lincoln says? Yes, sir. That's correct. No one will ever take us down from the outside. If we're ever going to fall, we're going to fall from the inside. And you know what's going to be the main cause of why we fall?
We don't care.
We're going to, I don't give a damn it to death. Guys, you've got to be involved. Oh yeah, it's easy to say, well, I'm a senior this year. I don't care what happens. You know, we didn't get into my three years prior to here. Why should I work for something that'll change it now to make it better for people who come behind me? That's a real poor attitude. Can you make a difference? Oh, don't be so sure. I told you I taught high school for 10 years. The last 5 years that I taught high school. I was also the student council advisor. When I became the student council advisor, I went to the principal. Now, granted, it was a Catholic high school. I went to the principal and said, you know, I think it would be a great idea if we approached the board to see if we could get a student council member to sit on the board with a voice. The principal looked at me and said, Father, that's a great idea. Thank you very much. Go back to your classroom. I'll think about it. Okay, I'm smart enough to know when I'm being blown off. So I went and sat down with the officers of my student council. And I said, hey, what do you guys think about petitioning the school board to have one of you sit on the board as a voice of the students? And they talked about it. Just so happened that the vice president of the student council, father, was president of the school board. So he took the other three officers to his house one night and sat down with his father, and they talked about it. The father took the idea to the school board, and after 2 months of discussion of it, they decided to allow one of the members of the student council to sit on the school board with a voice. All of a sudden, the principal thought it was a doggone good idea. Gentlemen, don't tell me you don't have any power to do anything. I don't buy it. A number of years ago, there was a small school south of St. Louis that had an open campus. We all know what an open campus is, don't we? That means you can leave and go someplace else for lunch rather than stay on campus. The school board decided that they were going to close the campus. They took a vote, they closed the campus. Didn't consult the students. Students weren't happy. Now, like I said, this was a small community. If you ever grown up in a small community before the days of pagers and cell phones, you know that in order to call the volunteer fire department that most of those small communities have, they have a large siren, or a series of sirens in the community that go off at a given time every day to test them. Just so happens in that community, the sirens went off at noon. Students got their act together. They decided on a given day when that siren went off, they were all going to get up and walk out of school. Risky adventure. Except one of them was smart enough to do something. They contacted one of the television stations in St. Louis, and that day when they walked out of school, there was a television camera recording everything. They got their opportunity to address the board. Didn't change, but at least they got their opportunity to address the board. All I'm telling you guys, it's a matter of what you want to do. How many of you in here go to a private school, Catholic school, or please stand? Anybody homeschool in here? Had two so far this week, so, no. Okay, thank you. Just out of curiosity, Sue, where do you go to high school?
Peoria, Notre Dame. It's in Peoria.
Peoria, Notre Dame? Okay, thank you. Only because I have a second master's from SLU. Thank you. You may be seated. So that means the rest of you go to a public school, right? Who's in charge of a public school? Who hires the principal? Who hires the superintendent? And how does the Board of Education get seated? I'm sorry? The people. Explain what you mean by that.
Well, they run for, they run for their seat on the board.
They're elected, correct? Who elects them?
Taxpayer.
I don't know if you paid attention the other night, but somebody, I believe it was Mr. Brown, Jeff Brown, made a comment the other night, the quote from Justice Brandeis, that the most important office in a democracy is that of citizen. Can't agree with him more. It is. Now, you may not be able to vote yet, but I bet you live with people who can. When's the last time you sat down and had a serious conversation with your parents about the condition and issues within your school? Yes, sir.
About 2 months ago, my town held a referendum for about $200 million to improve all the schools.
And?
So, well, my mom teaches in the district, and we were just talking about what would be done, how they would vote, and why people would vote against it.
Very good. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
We talked about.
Nice and loud.
We talked
I
about.
told you, I'm getting old.
Okay. We talk about issues. My parents and I talk about issues in our school almost every week because they are both heavily involved with the district, and we just like to make sure that everything's running smoothly.
Gentlemen, we can't hear each other if we're carrying on our own conversations, please. Thank you. Try that again, young man, please.
We talk about issues with the school almost every week because my parents are both heavily involved with the district, and we just like to make sure that everything's running great and that nothing needs attention.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir. In the orange.
Every day. Because
is there a specific issue that you're concerned about right now?
No, my dad just is the superintendent, so he gets
Oh,
feedback from
okay.
us.
The young man in front of you. Yes, sir.
About like a month ago, we talked about how our band only has one director, and she has to direct around like 110 kids. So we wanted to get a assistant director for her.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Like every day, because my mom's a principal, so, yeah.
So if you get sent to the principal's office, you're in double trouble.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, poor guy. Yes, sir.
Pretty much every day. Mostly it's just complaining. Other times it's actual issues.
Yes, sir.
About once a month, I'm over with the primary school. So our school proposed the building of a $5 million football field that we do not actually need, and drawing actual money from academics and putting it towards the football field.
Way in the back, and then the gentleman in front of you next. Yeah.
My mom is an administrator for the special education program in my town, and I was in a classroom with someone that was in that program, and I believed that they needed an aide, so I talked to her about that, and she brought it up in her office.
Yes.
They forced all the incoming freshmen and incoming sophomores to buy Chromebooks, and we talked about how my sister's a freshman, they never use them, and it's a couple $100 for not pretty looking piece of plastic.
Yes, sir.
Maybe like once a week or sometimes daily because student council usually doesn't get things done and usually falls on other people who aren't elected to bring up the class and stuff. Raise money.
Just out of curiosity, how many of you in here, and would you please stand, are in schools that have more than 1,000 students in them? If you have more than 2,000, remain standing. Everybody else sit down. If you have more than 2,500, remain standing. If you have more than 3,000, 3,000 remain standing. More than 3,500 remain standing. Okay, Tiger, how many you got? 6,000? Where do you go to school? Waukegan? Thank you. You may be seated. How many young men?
The other one.
Oh, okay, thank you.
A little over 35,000.
3,500, where do you go to school?
Grant, Buckley.
Thank you. Now, just out of curiosity, how many of you in here are in a high school of less than 200 students? Please stand. So in other words, what you're telling me, gentlemen, is that there are more kids, more guys here at Boise State than are in your high school?
Yep.
How many?
Just under 200.
Thank you. 90? Where do you, okay, now where do you go to high school? I think I know where that's at. Yes, sir.
I go to the same high school as them.
Okay. In the classes?
100.
Where at?
Cornerstone in Bloomington.
Okay, thank you. Yes?
120, Lincoln Woods, Raymond.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
About 180.
Where do you go to school?
Mount Class.
I know where Mount Pulaski is. Yes, sir.
Same.
Okay, thank you. Does size make a difference? Yeah, sometimes it does. High school I graduated from is still in existence. It's a public high school. It's about 12 miles from another town that has a high school. About 20 years ago, that other high school did a major campaign, sold bonds because it is a public school, built a brand new high school. Prior to that happening, there was a discussion of combining the two high schools and putting it in the community between the two, which did not have a school, in order to do more for the students. It never got off the ground. Why? Well, I told you what I do for a living. What I do for a living tells me that in the Old Testament, there was a great pagan god called B-A-A-L, and it was pronounced Baal. I'm a firm believer, I'll qualify this in a minute, but I'm a firm believer we still have a great pagan god today, and we only changed one letter. It's now spelled B-A-L-L, as in basketball, football, baseball, and we build great cathedrals to the great god Baal. Now, I said I would qualify that. My very first assignment, I was the athletic director for a 300-student grade school. I think sports are an extremely important part of the curriculum. I would never want to totally do away with sports from the curriculum. It's very important. In fact, in that last high school that I taught at, we lost probably 12 to 15 freshmen every year because the high school didn't have football. Had a great soccer program, a decent baseball program, a very good basketball program, but we didn't have football. I guess, you know, my question is that how many of you really think that you're making it into pro ranks in a sport? But how many of you could use some help in getting into a college to get a good education? Yes, sir. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of timing, guys. It's a matter of timing. I want to tell one last story about thinking you don't have any power. I did not get to vote until I was 21. The age was not lowered. The age of voting was not lowered to 18 until after I was already 21. When I was a college freshman, and I was not 21 yet, there was I should back up and say that in St. Clair County, where I grew up, if anything knows anything about the politics in St. Clair County, it's changing now, but when I was, 40 years ago when I was in high school, there was a big difference. St. Clair County was highly Democratic. In fact, in 1970, there had not been a Republican elected to a countywide office in over 35 years. somewhere in that year, a man in Belleville's daughter got pulled over by the sheriff's department and was hassled, not physically, but mentally, given a real tough time. And the father tried to get some justification for it and didn't. He was not a happy camper. He decided he was going to run for the office. And a bunch of us college students who could not vote campaigned for him. We went to the little communities within St. Clair County. We went to their annual picnics or fundraisers. We marched in their parades. We went door to door handing out leaflets. And in 1970, for the first time in over 35 years, we elected a Republican to a countywide office in St. Clair County. As a pharmacist, he became the sheriff. Was it a smart thing to do? I don't know. At the time, it seemed right. And we got lucky. We got lucky. I won't deny that. Are you always going to succeed? No. Yeah. Don't I wish. I got to tell you, I have not voted in every election that I've been able to vote in since I turned 21. Even if there was no competition, even if it was only a school board or a city council, or even just a library board. Why? Because I am a citizen, and I hold the most important office in a democracy. Plus, I'm a firm believer that if you don't vote, you've got no right to gripe. If you aren't part of the solution, you be part of the problem. You've got to vote, guys. That's why if you learn nothing else from your week here, we, the staff, hope you go home with two realizations. Is that one, you have to be informed. Now, I got to tell you, that's a little difficult today, because if any of you have been paying any attention, you know that everybody is accusing everybody else of fake news. What is the truth? As I tell my people in Southern Illinois sometimes when they ask me tough questions, if I had the answer to that, I wouldn't be in Murfreesboro. I don't know what the answer is. Am I frustrated by it? You bet. I read the editorial page of 3 different newspapers every day. And somewhere in reading all of those pages, I hope I get somewhere a sense of what might be the truth. Am I absolutely certain? No. But it's my responsibility. To those of you out here who said that you didn't know who the candidates were, do they have a responsibility to share with you? Yes. But you have a responsibility as well. You have a responsibility of learning what they stand for so that you can make an informed decision. And then you have to get involved and vote. Be active. Some of you will be tomorrow's leaders. Thank God. Some of you won't. Thank God for that, too. But you don't have to be a senator. You don't have to be a legislator. You don't have to be governor. But what about running for school board? Make sure that your community does the most that it can for the young people of your community and the future generations. What about running for the city council? To make sure that your community does the best it can for all of its people. Is it going to be an easy job? Yeah, right. If you believe that, I've got some land I want to sell you. But you've got a responsibility, gentlemen. It's all up to you. You are today's leaders, not tomorrow's. You are today's leaders. And we hope that you go back home to your communities after this week with a desire to make a difference in your communities. You talked about Boy State being something that, as a week that changes your lifetime. It did for me. Because the one thing it taught me back in 1968 when I was a high school junior, I could do exactly what I'm doing this morning. And that's get up in front of a group of strangers and not be terrified out of my wits. Speak in front of public. It doesn't bother me. It helps in my profession, too. But guys, get involved. Let's thank these gentlemen as they return to the seat. Somebody else wants to rearrange it, they can rearrange it. Again, gentlemen, the thing that we hope that you learn the most out of this is, one, being informed, and then two, being involved. I got to tell you, this last election was a tough one for me. I didn't know who to vote for. Did I vote? Yes, I did. Because I firmly believe that if I didn't vote, I don't have a right to complain about the outcome. However, I can tell you that when I voted, I knew very well that the person I was voting for was not going to win. Didn't like either of the major candidates for the office of president, so I voted for some guy who had a great first name. Yeah, I was going to say, if you paid attention when I introduced myself, you know that I voted for Gary Johnson. My first name is Gary. But I knew very well in the state of Illinois that he had no chance of winning. But I voted. Now I have a right to voice my opinion about the outcome. Do I? Not too often, at least not publicly. But guys, it's up to you. Has my generation left you a mess? Absolutely. I'd apologize for it, but I don't think it would do any good. You guys have got a tough call ahead of you, especially not only nationally, but here in the state of Illinois. I told you I'm responsible for 170 student grade school. At the beginning of last school year, we lost 24 students because their parents were all associated with Southern Illinois University, and all of them took jobs at other universities because they weren't sure of the future of their job at SIU because of the shenanigans that are going on in Springfield with the failure to have a state budget. At the end of this year, I lost a phenomenal junior high math and science teacher. Why? Because again, her husband worked for the university and he took a job at another university because he felt it was safer there. We've got problems. If I had the answer to those problems, I wouldn't be in Murfreesboro. But maybe if we all work together, if you put your minds together, you can make a difference. I hope so. One last little thing I want to do with you. If you've heard this before, please play along and don't share it with your other friends around you until at the very end. If you're going to be informed, you've got to know something about the people. But I'm telling you, you can't just take Snapchat and Twitter for the information. You've got to do more work. Let me give you an example. I'm going to give you the background of 3 candidates that I'm going to ask you to vote. Candidate A associates with ward healers, astrologers if you wish, astronomical healers, drinks 8 to 10 martinis a day, chain smokes, and has had 2 affairs. Candidate B was kicked out of office twice, used drugs in college, drinks a quart of brandy every day. Candidate C was a decorated war hero, has an occasional beer, and has had no illicit affairs. That's what you know. How many of you would vote for candidate A? How many for candidate B? How many for candidate C? Now, would you like to know who these people were in real life? Yes. The first one was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. The second one was Winston Churchill. And the third one was Adolf Hitler.
No. You never say that. It's always Hitler. It's always Hitler. It's always
All right, gentlemen. Gentlemen, again, I hope that your time here at Boys State is as rewarding as it can be. I hope you do go home excited about being a citizen in this great country that we have. I spent 9 years for the church traveling internationally, and in that 9 years I learned one very important thing about myself. I'm an ugly American. I enjoy the freedoms and the comforts that I have in this country. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. I'm very proud to be an American, and I hope that you go home with a renewed sense of pride in yourselves and in your communities, and will work to make a difference. The chair will recognize a motion to adjourn. I haven't heard the motion yet.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same signs. Ayes have it. You're dismissed to your counselors. Thank you, gentlemen. guys, have a great day.
Why?
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, if you only got a